Lukey.
Dr. Jubb.
G'day, mate. How you doing?
Hey, David.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
so awesome to hear from you.
yeah. Amazing going back in time, of course, to socially influencing things there in New York and having done 4,000 shows over 14 years and things, which aired on cable at prime time at 7 at night on a Tuesday and Wednesday. But I think our listeners and everybody really could be in for a great treat because, like what you said, was you thought would be great for our listeners to have a how-to look at longevity itself and like what could we do to simplify that basically, so you could get a good picture, in your brain of things. Let's see. It starts with vitamin L, which is in colostrum and in breast milk. And vitamin L is the most important vitamin that you could have. And gastrin, which is cause of acid to be formed, and secretin to be caused of very large particles of hydrogen to be more formed and higher up the alkaline scale. And those forces all only can function because of vitamin L and water. And so most people could be thinking protein, cholesterol, salt, all sorts of things, but not thinking about water and the structure of water itself. But the quality of your life really is based upon the structure of the water that you can keep and how enzymatically active material is, that it could be broken down and cleared away, that it's clean. And our work a lot over many decades sort of really is to do with looking at the links. And so a clock, which you could imagine just for a moment like a glycon clock, you could have a little Y shape there in your head, three-dimensional, and those little Y shapes, they fit over the outside of a cell, and that is its glycan covering around itself. So, and that's made up out of colloid of life, which have assembled into life colloid, which is as spores aggregated to be double spore, and are made up out of double spore and fused more. And they come from a red blood corpuscle originally. And these little glycone clocks, they fit in and around all the cells, and it teaches your immune system what's you and what's not. And over a moment of time, that if dead food just came in, not live food, which we'll come to talk a bit more about what that is, regulates everything. You've got otherwise small inflammation going on, and that would have gone on, describing everything that you could see, which really relates to aging. And disease like oxidation could be aged, where someone is, and they could just over 2 weeks of being really not well, they could have lost a decade or more of their life during that period of time, because glycan predict how much activity could be existed and how much immune system is, because the glycan that you should have around, like an immunoglobulin G, which you take from saliva, and you look at that. Today it's possible to do a glycon clock, and it can teach someone how much oxidation has gone on in various systems and things, and how much that relates to decades of your life and this sort of thing. So a link to mortality and glycan predict cardiovascular health. For those that's listening, I think it's really good that what you asked for this show is be more a how-to, and that the idea of getting things down to like 6 points basic, like, which you could think of things like this a little bit, which we can come to, what would those points be that relate to longevity itself. When you look at gene, since 2002 onward, like quite incredible, everybody could see that and what gene related to what, and we saw suddenly that trans fatty acids and people had the ability to be able to manage trans fatty acid lived a longer life, and those people who really didn't have much DNA to manage that really lived a shorter life, and that trans fatty acid was one of the major things that actually caused somebody to really have a lot of oxidation in the body, having had that, you see. But live food then clears that away. But the idea really is to make the blood hygienic, and when live food does that, which we can come to talk a bit about what this is. But in this work, we talk a lot about heat shock protein, which really is adding little molecules like 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 carbon atom, like it's methylation, and that turns DNA on and off, you see. So it's very important to make those small molecules. And you certainly need gastrin and secretin to be able to do that sort of. So our program talks about what the priority of things is, and that's the Brunner gland, and we'll come to this a little bit, but it provides a very strong north negative to be able to have a reductive force called hydroxylation, which is more cold shock protein. And you have heat shock and cold shock and temperature gradient and things, which is on a microscopic level, which also voltage exists there too. And those two things actually really cause someone to be able to clear away metal colloid, which has been, and plastic and things like that. And to see plastic particle be reduced, microplastic and this sort of thing sort of in the body, which we could come to. And so somebody really that's listening could suddenly be reduced 20 years more off their age. And so they've got, a lot longer to live being fit, which longevity is about. So, 6 months of a cleansing protocol, which really could help someone. And these glycans are polysaccharide, meaning like they're sugars, and they're bonded. And they need to be clean and enzymatically cleared up and things, and just be perfect from plant-based material, because coming back full circle to when we started, vitamin L, which is N-acetyluramic acid, there are so many surfactants that is similar to that, like from fish, from insects, from amphibian, from mammals, and so those are also surfactants which are similar to N-acetyluramic acid, but not. And it's a reason why N-acetyluramic acid, which is vitamin L, really is the primary substance in breast milk and colostrum. And it really is because it assists to cause this polysaccharide bonding and a lot of other things to be able to be cleared, and a lot of dead food, which is heavy carbohydrate with complex protein and things like that, which will come to more, which will have caused somatostatin to be released, really causes estrogens to be excessive, and one's glycon clock will get loaded up where strange estrogens are from foodstuffs that's excessive, like icing and cake and all sorts of things, which break down to xenoestrogens, which is strange estrogens. So life hydrate vitamin will really help protect everything, because it's the primary antioxidant, the smallest, and it can pass right through into the DNA. So something has got to be down there and 40 nanometers small to get through into the DNA to help protect DNA and this sort of thing. So what we're talking about right now, H3O2, which is life water, which adds a great key to longevity and heart health, and way more than someone's focusedness on cholesterol would be, or things that's like that, because H3O2 really stops blood clot, you see. Otherwise, clotting formation really is what causes someone to really be suffered ever more, and blood circulation because of that. So, and it's very common. So H3O2, positively negative, really gives a voltage in your blood and plasma, and vitamin L does this, you see. So it sort of charges everything up. So fibrin, which is a clotting type of agent and growing as a life colloid, where blood needed to be sort of held relative or where arteriosclerotic plaque is in the arteries, a lot of therapies and things could loosen that, and that shedding of the lining can cause clotting, you see, where someone is. So today, someone should be more scientific more as to be how they go about clearing things up. And so you've got cells which line the passageway of our cells, which vitamin L really is helpful to have. And we just said that gastrin secrete, and gastrin are upstairs, which creates hydrochloric acid, and secretin downstairs, which causes molecules like bicarbonate and the chloride molecule to be transferred through the cell membrane and damages and things to this sort of carrying agents, which we can come to talk a bit about so you can understand that, what the reason is behind the product that we have, and how important 3 amino acids are, which feature always in our work where Jubb cell rejuvenation is, because you've got aromatic rings, which are very vital, because coming to eventualness, you could be understanding how light is conducted to a DC current that what runs the body quite a bit. And the eyes and all this sort of thing doesn't really operate much from blood at all, but is operating from melanin and melanoid, which assist to cause energy to come in a lenticular fashion, where it spins and comes in on a curve and comes in and it doesn't come back out again, except as an ultraviolet light. But then it's being used by the tissue, which converts it more into a DC current. So you've got glycans, which are primarily responsible to help where this is, and then if you've got your glycan clock all filled up with spaghetti and other things, which is excessive of something that's been going on, it really doesn't function as well as what it can. And we're just talking about how light comes in through the eyes, and light conductiveness from chromatins and things, where that's very important about dopamine and serotonin and these sorts of things. And to be able to sort out what's self versus non-self. And we have a coming to the septal, which includes the septum, which is a little vesicle, and the pellicudum, which is a window, like a triangular window, which is clear, and it senses all the very fine molecule and causes you to feel good and create whole brain patterning, because it neurologically inhibits the amygdala, which shuts down aversion, because you can't be feeling really pleasant, and then feeling a bit miffed at the same time, sort of thing. And so one system like this, what we're talking about, causes whole brain patterning. And so dietary glycan, where food stuff is, which is non-live food, like dead food, of course, cooked food, flesh, excessive bean and grain and things, all cooked out. Those are foods all which isn't going to help too much, because somebody's really got to have sort of a bit of enzyme going on where something is to fit more where live food is relative. And so people could learn how to prepare food, of course, which could be braised and also baked and things just like this, yet you still sort of keeping some enzyme. So enzymatically, ecological sort of carbohydrate and things that sort of comes in. But otherwise, it's important you could look and see in the picture that we've just been building an excessive amount of protein and mucin-forming material, which blocks the flow of mucus and is mucin blocking. These are things which ordinarily would be there, which moderates an oxygenation, of the glycosidic sort of linkages. A glycoside is like hydrogen linked to protein and fats and things. And life colloid, which are tiny little double spores and double spore, transform and reduce into short-chain fatty acid, where a meal is eaten, it doesn't get emptied out of the upper stomach because it raises somatostatin, which stops the upper stomach and blocks the pancreas from function. And a lot of foodstuffs would do that, like heavy protein and complex carbs eaten out of turn, out of time, without proper bile to be able to manage all of that. Sort of it really ends up being a short-chain fatty acid. and how much is somebody's ability to be able to manage that, because a lot of people without the enzymes which like glycan, which glucagon, which comes in through live food and through these formulas that we have, or assist to cause someone to feel better and feel good, like pickled purslane, for instance, has a lot of substance in it, which is quite remarkable for reducing all the dysfunctional types of protein, because you need biotin, which is B17, and B9, which is folate, to be able to do things just like this. But otherwise, overall, the terrain shows that H3O2, which is water, that vitamin L help produce, and glycon and the gel that H3O2 creates from negative to positive, a charge comes from this gel, and this is the primary sort of water that we have in our body. And without that, you've got a lot of acid, which dehydrates and pulls hydrogen out of that picture, and that's called advanced glycolization endpoint, which is called age. And that engages a lot of lectin, which is a lot of substance connective tissue which couldn't have been broken down properly, and that in the lens of our eyes and things just like that, it starts to become clouded, or otherwise you could see on live food, it all start to be cleared up. And somebody has a focus on what to do, which is like cleaning out the Brunner gland and various things that one can do to raise the voltage of their body. And so lectin formation isn't proper, or doesn't exist much on a live food diet. And then on a dead food diet, we've got a lot of lectin and things, which is sort of sticky substance and factor. But healthy glycon doesn't exist where that is. But otherwise, lectin is all put where glycan is, around the cell membrane, and suddenly the immune system is thinking, well, I'm not sure what we could do where this is. It's sort of managing everything, you see. And that's what this glycon clock is very much about, because as it's clean and clear, it shows that your glycolics, which are tiny little hairbrush-like borders at the capillary bed, are really in good stead, and they don't have a huge mountain of colloidal mineral material from dead salt and plastic, microplastic, and all sorts of things that's like piled up behind that, which doesn't let the lymphatic drain, so capillaries can't flow. And so, Jubb cell rejuvenation has a focus on these things, because you basically, where longevity is, you're stopping and you're clearing away all the cross fiber linkages and things, you see, and that's all the stiffness, and immediately lots of things gets cleared up. But I would really care that people could have been in despair, and they could have thought the end was, or something, and I'd like to give you hope where everybody is, because it's just terrific. If you haven't looked into Jubb cell rejuvenation, then you should, and I wouldn't give up until I have completed and done some things and understand what this is about, because this is more the answer for you where you are. So live food, which somebody could learn a bit more about what this is, it's low phosphate and low methionine, but live food, where it's heavy in nitrogen and protein and things, it's the very substance which causes neoplasm to form. And nitrogen and oxygen and things that's like that are so important, where you've got amino acids, which is necessary to transport things like asparagine from asparagus, and you've got these foodstuffs like broccoli and Brussels sprout is another example, and chopped spinach and things that's shredded and things that's gone into a dish and stuff, but has serine and threonine in it, and it's respect to sort of how much substances exist, like what product that I've made, which is 6th generation product, which is put into tiny platforms and transported across your tongue into the blood and lymph. Otherwise, foodstuffs have got to go through the digestive tract to get to what this is, which is enzymatic fructooligosaccharides types of material, which clears away all the cross-linked connective tissue, which could be existing between myosin, actin filament in muscle, and this sort of thing. And so everything is cleared away because you've got raising your pancreatic function, coming full circle to the Brunner gland and everything, which is really the benefit of doing upstream cleaning, but also all the cellular adhesion and things from pleomorph material and life colloid glycosylation, which is debris beyond what should be there, gets able to be cleared away because you're bringing enzymes into life food to help where this is. And vitamin L, that we've been talking a bit about, making water H3O2, is very proteolytic and protective, and only can cause enzymes to function because you have this. Well, you've got 5% less of what this is. The body really is in a disease state, so it's so critical, matter of fact. So somebody thinks about clearing up your life colloid or terrain, and then the cell and everything can be functional proper, because glycosamine, glycan, and GAG is normalized, and so the cell goes, oh, the body goes, that's you, how good is that, versus, gee, I'm not sure, this is sort of mixed up with a few things which doesn't seem right. And so immune conditions occur to tissue and stuff, and a lot of cross-reactivity type stuff has gone on. And the immune system eventually doesn't really function, but enzymes brought in help the response back of the immune system, because you clear away all the immune complexes and things from the blood. So dead food is really heavy with methionine and phosphate, which isn't life food. Somebody could be learning a bit more about what that is. Also non-orthophilic heavy mineral salt, which somebody could be learning a little bit more about what that is. And then calcium carbonate in all the beverages and things and stuff like that really causes cyst formation in excess and things like this, because there's got no enzyme in its complex or anything, and it's really enzymatically linked and in a resistant state. And so, food stuff has to be broken down properly, because otherwise you're ending up with a glycolization endpoint product. And ascites, meaning little water deposits and vesicles, all sort of grow more in tissue where they shouldn't. And trans fatty acid from eating and not being monophasic, but being tri or diphasic in the way that you ate every day, that trans fatty acids all then come about where that is, and it's really a major cause of cognitive dysfunction. Lukey, basic, like really, and indigestible protein, which really is just not able to be broken down too much and stuff like that. So if you would look at, like, just in a short moment, what would the longevity clocks be engaging? You could see 6 sort of areas where clocks are, which really does relate to inflammation. So the first clock, of course, relates to inflammation. And there's a whole range of things like C-reactive protein and Scott enzyme and your albumin globulin ratio and these sorts of things that can relate to that, as well as a glycan study, you see, so easy done. Another thing, somebody could look and see how much an ease of ability do they have to be able to fit into the ultradian and circadian cycle of the day. I mean, so they have dark at night and light during the day, and they get rid of excessive blue and white light, which somebody should learn a bit more about that. So circadian ultradian clock would be the second, and so we've got 6 longevity clocks. One, is, of course, we just talked about, is what inflammation exists in the various clocks that relate to that. The second one is just straight up looking at how much your ultradian circadian clock is in harmony, where things are. The third, which really is, what sort of anti-aging intervention might you be using or having done that's evaluative more, and how much life food and agrarianistic sort of life colloid effect has there been on cell rejuvenation, and how much does that impact your Brunner gland for cognitive proper processing and everything. So that's number 3, would be, what's your anti-aging sort of intervention that's evaluative about the condition you have as far as life colloid is concerned in the terrain. And these 6 things are sort of deductive logic. So number 4, which you could think about, would be the DNA structure, which predicts the chronological age, the telomere length. And so you've got to have some 72 base pairs where the telomere are, when they get shortened down so much, the telomere and DNA can't make faithful protein and things. So you've got a clock that relates to the DNA structure, and these are things which Jubb cell rejuvenation targets to help bring back and give you molecules like ubiquitin molecule and resveratrol and things which help build back the telomere length, which the life colloid does, like quite radical, and the formulas do that we have. So number 5 would be, was thinking about this for our listeners, which today we talked a little bit about making very small molecules like 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 carbon atom, and that those small enough as a methylation molecule to help turn DNA on and off. And then how to make molecules really much smaller through hydroxylation. We're talking about how important gastrin and secretin especially, to help break things down and pass this onto the body, that it gives you a micronization. And so you have kinetin, which is what amino acid and DNA is made from, and leptin, which causes you to feel good, and your septum pellicidum registers this feel-good sensation, and it switches off the amygdala, and it causes whole brain patterning to be existing. And so that's DNA methylation and hydroxylation sort of is a longevity clock that relates to the glycan and everything that we could talk about. And number 6 would be all these things which relate to epigenetics, because every single one of these things is upstream of the DNA. And how do you go about turning around what's epigenetic, you see, and reversing those things over time, which halts the DNA damage and clock, which could have determined your age, you see. So if you remove, we just talked a little bit upstairs there about somatostatin, how important that is, and that life food and being monophasic is going to help you be able to make proper neurotransmitters and things like that, and biotin, for instance, and which is B7, and B9, which is folate, must be so important, because you've got a whole range of things which is necessary to be able to make neurotransmitters and things like that in the brain. So you've got a DC current that runs from light and converts that to sound frequency, and sound frequency is converted to conductive current. Otherwise, all trans fatty acids, there's extraneous synthesis, otherwise wouldn't have been stopped, but is, because you become more monophasic, and that heals people from the influence of somatostatin being existed after they ate, because at a turn at a time wasn't enough bile to flow, and this sort of thing. We talked a little bit about just here blue and white light not being balanced by red. And these are things which could be talked more about, but we're mentioning it here because it adds to the material, that's above and below, but that you could be understanding how important it is that blue and white light is balanced by red light. Otherwise, it's sort of like a panic attack where people could be having that, and impulsivities and lack of control over movements. And B12, B17, which is very heat sensitive, to be present. B17 is transmutated into B12 cobalamin in the last few inches of the ileum, and so you've got B12, and you need a light to make vitamin A, and so you've got substances that produces like an overlight, which is pro-vitamin A, and molecules which target inside, which is the major reason for Jubb cell rejuvenation, basically. Yeah. What questions might you have at this point, mate, maybe?
I had one that I came into the phone call with, if you don't mind.
Because we'll make a break and we'll come right back to everything. You and I will just take a 5-minute break or something, and we'll come right back. I think for our listeners, where we are in our program, should it be like you've got these 6 points above a little, but let's have 6 points with your bullets, and how might you be able to conceptualize and have a greater situational awareness to what longevity is, And so we could put things in 6 points and how that you might conceptualize the whole thing, and that could really make sense to all of us. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
yeah. Um, is, anyway, of course, something we've brought up is the nociception or septal region of the brain, which nociception is a sensation of aesthetics and you're feeling good and these things. And as that's functional, it's neurologically inhibiting the amygdala. And so you've got a lot of what's positive and forward more in the language and everything versus what's not, and what don't want can't should try but must only sort of thing, which is more amygdala fed and everything. But so in a quiet, in executive, we could talk a bit about what this is as far as the quality of having a longer life and how do all these things relate to 6 principles or bullets that we could summarize things a little bit for in the last part of this program today. And how could we conceptualize this? Because there's a waveform which you and I should emit, and when we're emitting this, it's really like a God wave more or eye awareness wave, and that is so incredible because you've got a confluent vibration, which we'll come back to talk a little bit about in a moment, which is what is give you the longest life or not. Yes, right. So it makes sense because the inner quiet more is obtained, and out of everything, it's sort of really one of the most longest lived conditions that someone can have is to have shut down their own internal dialogue. But yeah, so all right. So I'll give you. I'll call you back, or would you just give me a call in 5 minutes, mate?
Sure. You can
Call
let
us
me know
back.
when you're ready.
Give me. Okay, I'll just say okay. You can call us back, mate. Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, mate.